Now this video is going to talk about one of the most common problems people have with their photographs, and that is the overexposed or underexposed. It's too dark, it's too bright, or there needs more contrast in the photograph. Here's a picture that's taken from the Empire State Building. Not a bad picture, but it needs contrast. And the normal tool that people would go to is under colors, brightness and contrast. And you can move this back and forth to brighten, darken. You've probably done this with different programs before. Same with contrast, increase, decrease contrast. There's one main problem with using this tool, and that's your eyes are the only gauge of whether it's correct or not. And the problem with using your eyes is each monitor that you're looking at could be brighter or darker than the one beside you, or the settings of a printer that you send off to Walmart to be printed may have different settings. So what you may think is too bright or too dark may not be actually too bright or too dark in the actual photograph when it's professionally printed. I'm going to reset these back here. And so we're going to use another tool to work with the brightness and contrast of a photo, and it's called levels. And when I pull this up here, you'll notice that it looks very different, and that's because there is a histogram. A histogram is a graph that shows you the distribution of bright areas to dark areas. This is the dark area because of this dark part of the graph. This is the light areas because of the whiteness. So it goes from dark through grays all the way to bright white. In fact, let me real quick before I jump into that, I'm going to make this photograph black and white because I really want to focus on the contrast and the brightness and darkness. So forget about the colors for now, and it's a little bit easier to see the changes in black and white. And first of all, you can see it's a very kind of a boring photograph in black and white because it's all kind of the same shades of gray. The way you'll use this histogram is there are 3 triangles on this bar right here. And there's also these output, ignore these output levels. We won't worry about those in this section. But these 3 on the top line change the brightness and contrast. These outside 2 change contrast, and this middle one changes brightness. Now, again, let me interpret the way this histogram is reading. What this means is this histogram is completely flat, or there's 0 values in the dark area of the graph. What that means is nothing in our photograph is very dark black. And if you look around, you can see that the darkest areas, maybe right in here or down in here, are just dark grays. The same for the white. If you look on this side, now on this side, it does have more light areas but very little because it's very flat, but it is some going all the way to fairly bright whites. And it's probably looking at the rooftop up here. You see there's a little bit of your picture that is indeed fairly bright white. What that means is that's already bright enough. We don't need to rework on this side of the photograph. The problem is on this side, it's just way too dark. And the way we're going to fix this is we're just going to grab these little handles and we're going to pull them over until they line up with where our graph starts rising and actually having values. So I'm going to point to there, and you can see it's added a lot of dark contrast to our picture now. And probably don't want to move much over here. If I do, I would probably stop right there. Even that's a little too much because our graph does have bright whites. When you pull it too far, you're making your image go bright, solid white, and you're losing any kind of detail. Same for over here. If you pull this too much, you're making too much of your dark areas black, which again lose detail. Now you could cheat and go a little more in, the more contrast you're going to have. You can see there's a lot of contrast now between the dark and the white areas of the picture. You could also change the brightness. You can just move it up and get a little bit brighter, make it a little darker. But the key is the bright areas, the whitest parts, you want to set using this graph right here. So don't rely on your eyes to tell you whether it's correct. The monitors in the classroom are very bright. I've noticed that when people save things on their screen and then open them up on another monitor, they're way too bright, or they're actually way dark because the monitor itself is making it look brighter. So use the graph to determine whether it's correct or not. I'm going to hit cancel and go back, and you can see that even though I was doing that to black and white, it still applies. It doesn't change. Notice this is the exact same graph because it's not looking at colors, it's looking at bright to dark levels. So I'm just going to pull this to about right in there, pull this just maybe a little bit, and this photograph has what, as they call, color corrected. We now have the proper balance from dark to light. Let me go to another quick example. This is from our gym. Obviously a very dark photograph. I'm going to go to color levels, and you can see we have the opposite problem. We have a lot of dark areas, a lot of dark, and then some average midtones, but nothing really bright. So to fix this, I'd grab that and pull it all the way to where it points, and I know that that's as bright as I need to make it. Any brighter and it's overexposed. It's too bright. So that's how we want to change. We don't want to use the brightness and contrast. Use the levels. It's much more accurate and gives you a histogram, a visual, so you can see your image, how it should properly be. Now, I'm going to jump off to another. I believe this is the image here. This is another image, and I just found this. This is a typical old photograph you'd find in a photo album that's 30, 40, 50 years old, and it's kind of turned a kind of a dingy reddish color. We're going to try to correct this photograph using the same techniques, but we're going to add on and show you some new options. If I go to color levels, I can spot immediately that yes, this picture does have problems. There's nothing dark, and there's really nothing light in it either. So I'm going to pull this all the way to here and pull this all the way to here. And you can see, well, it does have more contrast, but it really didn't help the picture a whole lot. And I'm going to hit reset down here to take it back to the original. And the reason for that is because this photograph, in addition to having its bright and darknesses not correct, is the individual colors are out of balance. If you look here on the top of this window, it says channel. And there's a red, a green, and a blue channel. Don't worry about the alpha for now, but there's a red, green, and blue channel. What that shows you is a different histogram for each of the three colors that make up this image. Remember, pictures are made up of red, green, and blue pixels. Mixed together form all of your different colors on your screen. So the histogram is different for each one of these, which means that there is no one set place we should be moving this overall bar, because all three of these need to be moved to different locations. And it allows you to do that. So on the red, I'm going to grab this triangle and I'm going to move the reds to about right there. And on this side, I'm going to move them over to here. On the green, I'm going to do the same thing. And notice how it's not the same. It's at a little different location, not as far over. And then I'm going to pull the brightness over to here. And then on the blue, again, it has its own problems. So I'm going to pull it back to here and pull this one way over to here. And now you can see how we've really cleaned up that photograph. And the easiest way to see the difference is uncheck preview. And it shows you before and after. And we've really kind of cleaned off kind of a film that's across the picture. It really helps you see the original colors. It's still not perfect. There's still some things that you could do to correct and brighten it. If you go back to the overall levels, you really don't need to do this again because it's already been. You've already done this when you did the red, green, and blue, so you really don't need to do that twice. Just do it once for the red, the green, and the blue, and then just hit OK. And that's the best you can do with that particular feature. So just to review, this is the levels command. It's used to change the brightness or darkness of a photograph, the contrast. In addition, it allows you to color correct photos to fix where photos are too red or too green. A lot of times cameras will take photographs that have maybe a yellow tint to the picture because of the settings in the camera are not on the right settings, so you get a yellow or a bluish tint on your photograph. And you can use this levels to remove that very cleanly using the levels command there. So that's under the colors menu, levels. Use that for both brightness and contrast of a photograph, in addition to going individually to the red, green, and blue channels to manipulate those individually.